Good evening. This is June 4th, 2024 at 6:00 p.m. In the Selectmen's chambers. I'd like to call this meeting to order and a roll call, please.
Tuesday, Morse present.
Joe Shank present.
Chad Sexton Duranian present. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank all those who had served, both past and present. I know they're doing the firemen's doing their memorial too tonight, 7 o'clock. And I expressed to them that we were a little busy tonight. We wouldn't be able to attend, but those do a nice job there. The meeting is being recorded and it will be uploaded at a later time to YouTube. Is anybody else recording? Chairman's additions and deletions. I do not have any.
I'm also.
I'm good. You're all set? Okay. Review and approve any meeting minutes. We do not have any, but I do plan on taking care of that on the 18th. 6:05 at 6:03.
Probably do 3.1.
Yeah, we can do 3.1. So I'll entertain a motion to appoint Jeremiah Ford as a part-time intermittent season laborer to the Cemetery and Parks Department with a start effective date of 6/17/2024.
So moved.
Second.
I looked at all the paperwork. I didn't see anything. Any discussion on that? So all those in favor?
Tuesday, Morse.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. We're all present, so we can just vote. We don't need to have a roll call. It makes it easier. We'll jump into 6:05 joint meeting with the Board of Health. This is for an appointment for the Board of Health. So the Board of Health, would you like to call your meeting to order?
Yes, we're going to let Kristen do the talking this evening.
Sure. Dr. Christian Roman Ramirez, Vice Chairman of the Board of Health. So the Board of Health on the last meeting had voted.
I apologize. Just say, first you need to call the meeting to order, take a roll call, just so because you have an official meeting. Just like you were having a meeting downstairs. Before you do any talking, you just have to have an actual meeting first.
All right, roll call of officers.
Christian Roman Ramirez.
James Weir, all present. I call the meeting to order on June 4th at 6:05 p.m.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure we were all official.
We're all official.
So on our last meeting of the Board of Health, we had decided to move forward, recommending Mr. Charles Serene as a clerk for the Board of Health for the position that was open. After discussing and we voted unanimously having him appointed as part of the Board of Health.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just as a reminder, because this is an elected board, it's not solely within the purview of the Board of Selectmen to make an appointment to fill a vacancy. The reason we have a joint meeting is because the two boards will not act as one to vote on an individual to fill the remaining vacancy. This is for Chris Nasella's remaining term.
Open position.
Yeah, so that's
And we do have two, there were two, from the paperwork I've received, there were two candidates. We do have one candidate that's here. And then, if I'm correct, someone needs to be, a motion needs to be made, and then the five
the five individuals would vote.
would vote on.
Everybody has a
I wish to, let the Selectboard board know that Paul Serena is in the hospital, and he couldn't make it today, so, but he expressed to us that he is interested in participating in the Board of Health.
Motion?
Yeah.
I make a motion, we appoint Todd Arsenal to Board of Health for the remaining term. Kristen Sellers.
That would be a term to expire on April 28th, 2025.
For a second,
Second,
there's a motion on the floor to appoint Todd Arsenal as for the vacant position for the Board of Health. Any
Mr.
further
Chair?
discussion?
I'd like to voice an opinion, please. You have a recommendation from the Board of Health to the elected officials, and we're recommending, I'm going to use the term Paul Serene to do this, and you're going to turn around and decide to do what you want to do your way.
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
And we're going to vote on the motion that's on the floor.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Joe Shank, yes.
Tuesday, March, no.
No.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. Okay, so is there a motion on the floor? Doesn't the nose get it?
Yeah, so 3 no's to so the motion failed.
Correct. So.
I make a motion to call for Paul Charles Serene for clerk of the Board of Health.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Tuesday, March, yes.
Joe Shank, no.
Chad Sexton Duranian, no. Okay, Mr. Serena's made the. Let's see.
We'll talk
They
to,
gotta-
we'll.
They gotta close their meeting.
Yeah, you would need to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to close the meeting of the Board of Health.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Paul will need to see the town clerk to get sworn in and
We'll make sure that we send that information down. To the town
Everyone
clerk.
else has?
It's all set.
Thank you.
thank you for coming out.
Thanks, Tom.
Let's see, 4.1, review and set meeting dates for July 2024 to December. Sabrina has put that in SharePoint. Did you guys review? Good then. Teresa, have you reviewed those?
No, I haven't. I can see it in SharePoint. Where is it in SharePoint?
It would be listed under 4.1, under meeting business.
Okay.
I may have a conflict with one of those dates.
You do? Conflict
You
with all of
have
them.
a conflict
I'm
with
not
some of
taking
them?
any discussion from that side of the table.
How about this side of the table?
I will entertain.
I will not be available on the 2 July dates.
Correct, and we knew that, though, didn't we?
Yes, we
I
did.
think so.
And I'm not available on site for either of the August ones, but I can zoom in. I'm only in May.
Okay. And you're okay to zoom in, Teresa?
I'm okay with all of those, but the 6th and the 20th, I'll have to zoom in.
I'll be glad motion of that. I'll be right back if I have to.
As long as we can get to Zoom.
Did you make a round trip?
I'm up in Bar Harbor.
Might have a passenger then.
Yeah, come down, we'll come down together. I'm driving down, I'm coming back.
No, what you should do is say,
So I'll entertain a motion to accept the
Before we
The
get
meeting
distracted.
dates from July to December 2024.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I was just gonna suggest you could just drive over to Joe's, you could Zoom together from one location. From a secure buffer.
I don't think we can do that because if she's not in, he's not, and I'm not here. I don't think just one person can sit in. Jim, can they?
We still don't, we don't need a physical.
Yeah, you don't need a physical quorum.
Primary
could-
was the presidential election dates. September 3rd, November 6th, I believe.
I have November 5th,
November 5th, that would
which
be-
is a Tuesday.
That's the presidential election,
On the 5th?
yes.
So that's
You
the day
know
after
those
my
things off
birthday.
the top of your head, huh? That's scary.
So why don't we take that out?
How about, did you have one September 3rd?
Yes, that's, they've got September 3rd and 17th.
The 3rd is
The primary,
the primary, state primary.
state primary.
And you wanted me to go someplace else,
So,
same here.
yeah, we could also meet at the library or something.
Or you could just move it to the next week.
Why don't we do that?
It's kind of like.
Let's change it to
September 10th and November
This
12th.
is a long month, so you can put still get 2 weeks apart and still be in September.
Okay. So why don't we do this?
And what do you want to do? September 10th, September 24th, and November 12th.
Correct.
Looks good.
You ready to update that and send it to us?
You're not gonna be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I better not be
They'll have you back for the.
So if
November.
she updates that, then we don't have to vote on it again
Yeah, we could just say with it.
with amendments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
No,
that's
you
good.
didn't.
That's
I
very good
appreciate it.
information.
All right, just for information on 4.2, I'm gonna move that to 7 o'clock. Because I have another individual that's gonna be talking about the mark proposed on the enhancing the right service. 4.3, discuss and review the impact of bond bill H 4459. Eric.
Yes, so, this is the first of a couple of really, impactful bills that have been announced recently. The H 449 is the economic development bond bill. It includes a raft of proposals for economic development, a lot of which have the potential to impact towns. So it includes, $400 million for MassWorks infrastructure. That is public infrastructure for private development. Just note that is one of the grants that is on the chopping block if you don't pass the MBTA communities. But that's $400 million, $250 million for Mass Impact, which is transformational economic impact projects. $100 million for the Rural Development Fund. So it's to provide financial support for infrastructure improvements and community planning efforts in rural communities. So towns would be eligible potentially for that. There's $100 million for local economic development grants. $90 million for the underutilized property program to support the redevelopment of underutilized, blighted, or abandoned buildings. There's money set aside for brownfields redevelopment, broadband expansion, improve site readiness for economic development proposals. Importantly, one of the things this does is codifies the rural community designation. So one of the challenges that I think municipalities of Townsend size were having previously was the fact that many different parts of the state government had different definitions for what it was a rural community. And this is one of the things we brought up in meetings with Ann Goby, who's our rural development coordinator.
Executive director.
Executive director for rural affairs. And so they put in this bill to have a specific designation that would be ubiquitous for what constitutes a rural community, so that we will know Townsend's going to, I believe, fall within that designation, that will be eligible for everything that targets rural communities. There are some reforms to permitting. There are significant capital authorizations for workforce training, for internships, nonprofits. There's money for climate technology. There's money for life sciences. There's money for business competitiveness. Importantly, I think for a town like Townsend, there's money for small business community development. So while it might not be realistic for Townsend to target a large scale, economic development like another Sterilite, which I think everybody would love to have, but may not be realistic. The ability to target impacts for small business might enable us to do the kind of expansion of small business I think we'd like to see in the downtown corridor, and kind of maybe even affect the corridor around the school that we're having that impact study done, being the corridor study being done on. There's money for micro businesses, so the business startups, and for public construction. I think there's money for tourism and the creative economy. We've been working with a group of both public and private individuals from the kind of the geographic area, Groton, Pepperell, Ashby, Dunstable, to look at some potential for tourism growth, resulting out of the beautiful facility that they have in Groton, that was recently opened. And so there's $150 million for Cultural Facilities Fund, $40 million for Destination Development Grants. And so that cultural economy money might be the kind of thing that we could use to maybe make some impacts in the historic district areas in town, to maybe draw in some more tourism dollars. If there's going to be some outflow from Groton, or people looking for other things to do when they come to Groton Hills, it's something that we might be able to avail ourselves. And that group is looking at ways to impact it across the region. Margaret Scarsdale has arranged for that group, and we've met, probably a dozen times over the last year or so. So that's this is called the Mass Leads Act. So I think it's important that we reach out to Rep. Scarsdale and encourage her to support the passage of this act, because I think it has a lot of different provisions that could impact Townsend and make us more eligible and competitive for some of the grants that I think we need to rely on to kind of move the town forward.
I had asked Eric to definitely take a look at this. He and I have been working with the executive director, Ann Goby, in regards to the rural communities. As historically, anything past 495 tends to fall off the map when it comes to allocating money. But the executive director has been very active in putting us all together to be able to define what a rural community is, because the definitions, because there's so many different definitions, sometimes we fall into the ability to get additional funds, and sometimes we don't. To me, the equity is not there. So also with the MBTA communities that we are coming up as an MBTA community, and we do have to have zoning plans for that particular law that has been placed into effect. There are certain grants that we would, if we don't have that zoning law on the books, we may not be able to get some of the grants that we're looking for some of development within town, increasing the tourism. We're on that swing right now to do a lot of really good things, as we've talked about in our goals over the last few years, and I want to be able to continue with that. At some point, I'd like to be able to bring Margaret in once they have a better idea of how this money is being allocated. She can talk to us about it. But the rural communities is one thing. The small business association, I've been to several meetings with that, which is really, I think she's doing a good job with that particular area of it. And there's also the tourism. I've been on a couple of meetings with that as well. So I want to be able to keep that going so that we can start pulling more money in to help us with some of our infrastructure. More importantly, I want to be able to have some of these grants take care of some of the extemporaneous stuff so that we can focus on things like roads, because that's really important. The UPWP with the looking at the corridor, as Eric said, from Proctor Road in front of the high school, has always historically been a very bad intersection. And having that engineered and studied, and we come up with options, and we'd be able to go for grants to be able to fix that. And that's kind of contingent upon what we're talking about in this bill. That's why I'd asked them to give us an idea of what's going on with that. You guys have any questions on that? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eric, for that. I appreciate that.
Is there any follow-up required out of that? Or?
For right now, Margaret's been pretty vocal with me in regards to that. You will be entering into a meeting, I think, shortly, one of the meetings that we do have coming up. So you can get your information with Margaret, and she can keep us both informed about how to move forward with it. Let's see, we've got about 7 minutes. We can jump down to 4.4, the public comment policy. I wanted to touch base on that because the current public comment policy that is currently in effect was signed in on July 10th of 2018. And in lieu of the conversations that we've had with town council, I felt that we might want to bring this up. I'm not looking to do anything right now, but I'm looking for some direction from the board. Do you want to strike this policy? Do you want to change it, amend it, I guess? There's two thoughts. Number one, we can strike this and come up with a new one. We can keep this in play right now until we work on the other. I did put in public policy for comment participation that I found from another town, which I thought was the way they split it up. It kind of made more sense to me. Each board is responsible for whether or not they want to do public comment. The public comment period is, under certain circumstances, I think it's important to get comment, but having an open comment at the beginning of it can sometimes be.
So my opinion on this is I like the verbiage in a lot of this, and it clearly states here that no person shall address the body without the permission of the chair. However, it does say the Board of Selectmen will have a public period at each meeting. If we could just strike that and just say, public comment will only be allowed if something along the line.
Authorized by the chair.
Authorized by the chair. But then keep all that other stuff, because when you do allow it, it gives you rules that, you know, at times that you can't. So I think if we just strike out that it's there will be a set 15-minute period, and that there will be public, comment only at the discretion, or at the discretion of the chair. I think we can keep the policy as it is and still obtain what Adam and town council has said.
If I could just mention that.
Sure.
I think what probably makes the most sense is to maybe have Adam take a look at the policy in lieu of the
Okay.
court decision and just say, is this, because are there things in here that are quite frankly unenforceable under this court decision? What's the point of having a policy that says X when we can't enforce it because the court says that's a violation of free speech? So I think first and foremost, it might make sense just to say, let's have town council look at this existing policy and opine as to whether there are parts of it that need to be stricken in addition to the one that Teresa had mentioned.
Right, because my thoughts are when you have public comment, it just means that they can talk about anything within the given parameters of time, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever
I think
it
it
is.
says 3 minutes.
Right. This, which one are you talking about?
The one that recently signed one, adopted.
Oh, the one that's dated May 22nd, 23? That was just an example.
No, the one underneath that, the one public, let me see the date on it. It's on, it was the one that was signed by, that's Lake Sue and.
Yeah, that's the town policy.
That's the existing one.
That's the
Right.
existing one.
Right,
That's
doesn't
on
it say 3 minutes in there? Sure is. It's this one I did read
The
earlier.
Board of Selectmen will have a 15-minute public comment period.
But I think individually, it might
Oh,
say
yeah,
each
yeah,
individual
A
person.
time limit of 3 minutes per person.
So and I agree with you, we should definitely talk with Adam about it. He said to me that if we wanted to have him write an opinion on it, we could do that, but I would think it would be easier for us just to talk to him when he comes in for his
Oh, sure.
for
Yeah,
his session.
Session.
Having an open comment period, meaning that anybody can come in and have their 3 minutes of saying whatever they want, or we can have it so that if somebody wants to opine on one of the agenda items, you know, and have it specific to what the agenda items are.
Yeah.
You know, there's many different ways to do that, but again, I put this out here to kind of get some direction on how you guys wanna go forward with it. Because what we have now, we're not really sure if it's.
Yeah, I think if we start with that, that's a good idea.
When is Adam's next?
It's usually the last of the month.
Yeah, I think this will be the 25th. Do we have a date yet, Sabrina, from Adam?
25th.
Said that.
Okay, so at 6:30, we're gonna jump back up to 2.2. I want to thank Kathy and the chief for being here for this discussion. I think it's a very important discussion. Full disclosure, Chief and I have talked about this at some length in regards to where we are with public records and the concern that that I have is that we have potentially a lot of time and effort, especially in the clerk's office, of putting together certain public records requests. The policy that the clerk has to follow, I think does sometimes may consume a lot of time in the different departments. I know Chief, his records requests tend to turn into some kind of financial burden, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So what I would like to find out some direction. I did talk to Adam about it. Adam said that, not to come up with a fee schedule, but to come up with a protocol. We need to have a protocol, especially with emails, if we have to do a forensic email. There's a form that has to have 2 signatures on it that we send to Guardian. Guardian then gives us in a format that we then have to go through and print it out. If it's of great length, then we may have to give it to Adam or town council to redact if we need it to redact, and then send out, and that can be cost us some money. Not to mention on your end of it too, your time.
Yeah. Is there any state guidelines that it can't be beyond a certain fee or anything, state guidelines on anything on the public request?
I'm gonna let the chief talk about it.
Sure, yes. We were faced with a pretty similar problem back when I first joined the agency back about 6 or 7 years ago. And I came up with a multi-year kind of approach to try and fix the issue. First things first is we were not, I don't think, tracking properly the number of requests we got. We get more than about 400 a year. We get quite a few. Now that is across the agency, so it involves discovery matters, administrative requests, action reports. So it's a fairly wide-ranging kind of swath of information that we end up releasing. Some is public records, some is not public, but the citizens or entities have access to those records in a different way. So yes, we can charge agencies under the size of, agencies or organizations under the 20,000 population mark can charge for an hourly rate. Problem with that is that hourly rate cannot exceed $25. Which I don't know where that comes from. It's just one of those holdovers from days of old when $25 was actually not an hourly rate. That said, we do regularly charge. A few years ago, you may remember, I think many of you sitting at the table were integral in us getting a revolving account going in which we deposit those funds into there and we draw from that. It's important to stop and think about what we use those funds for. We purchase on a regular basis thumb drives and diskettes, office supplies, but the biggest driver of cost for us seems to be, in addition to time, is software. We utilize software to video edit. We have to have higher editions of Adobe to do proper redactions. We have 911 dispatch logs and tapes that need to be redacted. So we've got some audio redactions to do as well. So we have pretty high cost items to do. So that's what we use to draw those funds to handle. What we end up doing is we take in the request and we perform a review. We have 4 people that are trained at the agency. I am the records access officer. Jess DeMeo is the primary person that does that function. And we both have backups, Lieutenant Peach for me and Trish Benoit for Jess. So the 4 of us, in some form or fashion, will perform a review. Sometimes that involves costing something out and giving it a spitball cost as to what it takes. Some of them we get some really crazy requests up to colleges that want to know the criminal justice data forever. I mean, we get some really goofy ones, but we do conduct a review. We estimate it, we share that amongst each other to see if there's anything that strikes us as very odd, and then we'll put together almost an estimate, a bid of sorts, and we will reply to them with that bid. We have found in our personal experiences that engaging with people making these requests and Kathy and I do that regularly as well, engaging is the best thing, because to find out what they really need, even though they're not required to tell us and they certainly don't need to, but it does help us hone in on that information and make that process a little bit more efficient. So once we gather that kind of cost together, we will issue them a letter, and oftentimes we'll call them to kind of walk them through it. And then if they agree to that fee schedule, we will roll out that information. We have added some things to our website to make it a little bit more efficient. We have a Q&A that's going up in the next few days. I think that covers most of the questions that we have about public records. We get a lot of questions as if they want to call me and give me a bill of particulars of questions, like I'm going to sit down and be interviewed, like I'm the entity and I'm going to answer these questions. Well, we don't do that. Tell me what you're looking to get in the way of a record, and we supply that record. So there's a bunch of other very very frequent questions that we get. Put a Q&A up there, and we have a form online for people to request our records, which is the vast majority of requests we get.
Is that the one you and I talked about?
So the Q&A, I think I sent you a sample of the Q&A that we're going to put up on our website. Yes. In a lot of these public records, well, public records is one law. I mean, it is a very difficult law to review. All the exceptions are in this one law. It crosses professions. We're subject to the same public records requests and laws that the town is, certainly. We have additional requirements and additional responsibilities based on the profession, administratively and otherwise, but we follow the same exact laws, obviously. We provide our people training at least annually. We are certified in that regard, and we keep that certification going by, I think it's have to go every 2 years or something along them lines, but we do cross-train as well. I'd certainly be willing to share that information about where we get our training and also our go-bys. We have some boilerplates that we utilize to assemble those costs. How long it takes to review and segregate the record, and then kind of an approximate amount of time it takes for redaction.
I think one of the, if I could.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Kathy if she can kind of give me some idea on your end, what you're finding, is it, your ideas.
When we get public records requests, chances are I don't have the records in my office. If I can go over to the drawer, pull it out, copy it, or scan it, email it, it's not a big deal. It's getting it from other departments that is the challenge. Because sometimes they miss an email because I'll forward it on to them. And when it's a larger request, we do charge. I usually send out an email stating what the fees will be and if they want to go forward with it. Because I don't want to go through the work and then have them say, no, never mind, I don't want that.
That's one of the factors that, because it takes a lot of time and effort to get it ready, and then they decide they don't want it after we've already done the work.
Right,
So.
and sometimes for any kind of plans for the building department or land use, we don't have a way to copy those unless we go down to the water department and disturb Dave Vigiant and have him do it, but that's not cost effective at all.
Right.
So then we have to go take it to Staples or one of those Minuteman Press or something and have a copy. But all that gets charged to the requester.
Correct. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just saying, I think based on my observations, the biggest challenge is, unfortunately, the town has to rely on outside vendors for some of the things that we're getting requests for. And I think we just need to make sure that when we have those requests come in, that the protocol should be, we get it in, we get an estimate from the outside vendor as to what it's going to take, and then we send that estimate through the clerk's office back to the requester and make sure that they pay it prior to us engaging the outside vendor to have those costs.
That's my biggest.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because, if
It would be the same thing, because Chief and I had talked, and he had a situation where he had everything already and nobody came to pick it up.
Yeah, it happens fairly frequently for us. We've gotten better at it now that video is a significant issue. If we have one incident, for instance, we have a property owners that are arguing and bickering and it maybe turns violent, we'll send 3 guys. Well, we have 3 body cameras. And 3 body cameras rolling for 45 minutes or an hour, however long they're there. And each one of those needs to be redacted, take away license plates. There's all kinds of rules regarding that to be consistent with the policy. So it's a pretty significant time waste for us. So we've gotten better at kind of determining what the cost will be. But the amount of time you take in estimating that is time you will never get back. It is just a built-in time. We've really whittled away at our records clerk's job, and I will be bringing some stuff to the board to reconcile that in the coming year. more than likely for fiscal 26 or something along them lines. But yeah, we are finding it to be more laborious for sure. We're getting better at that. We do not have the problem that Kathy's describing. All the records do generally reside within our building. If not, we point them to where to go and get that record. That's one of the reasons I think we have handled public records requests the way Kathy and I do now, where I don't like to do them through her because I think it's a better record of the entire process just going clean and having that person come to the police department. Just makes more sense from this, and that we don't miss stuff. If we too many people involved, if we have the record, it's the most pure copy of that record that you may get that is available. So it can be cumbersome for sure. We have gotten better at the records. So law needs to catch up with technology. Certainly there is that, but I can't find any way of making up for that. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll reach out or have the records clerk or one of the records clerks reach out and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm seeing. It's a pretty significant records request. This is what it's going to take for me to even assemble that, just to get a sense of whether or not the person is serious and it's just not nuisance requests, which we do get a bunch of. Time wasting nuisance requests. We've had a few of those. We've had to almost cease and desist type letters to make sure that they're requesting information in a manner that's consistent with the law and consistent with our policy. We've had that, I think, supported by town council and by public records in Boston when we have pushed back like that. We have had records requests appealed to Boston. Generally speaking, that's a fairly easy process. They're really easy to deal with. We go back and forth. We didn't feel we should release this for whatever reason, yes or no, and they'll guide us to the proper answer. So it's not that bad. I do find that triggering the first continuance, if you will, or extension is almost necessary in those types of requests that involve a lot of
That's
information.
the protocol.
Not doing it within
Look
10.
at if it's multiple emails that they're looking for, it's out of your hands, it's out of our hands. We have to give it to Guardian. Same thing with the chief with video. So we need, I talked with Adam, the best thing is to have a protocol that if it's email, we need to look at how many people that it involves. You know, we had a recent one where there were 3 or 4 people involved, and it looked like, yeah, it was written on one request, but technically when we send it over to Guardian, it was actually 12 separate requests for,
Okay.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one between you and I, and then from me and Ross, and turned into them having to actually do 12 different queries on the emails to put them all together, and then to put them all together, it comes in a format where we're gonna have to sit down and print it out, or we have to go through it and all of that.
Because there is the first, and I may get the days wrong, Kathy, please help me, but first one is 10 days, and we can automatically get the 25, I believe it is,
Yeah.
which is the second.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, if the first record comes in, and to your point, if we have easy access to, if it's an accident report or a log entry or a specific report someone's asked for, we can get that PDF oftentimes that day out to them. If it's involved, we will almost automatically trigger that one. We'll respond within the 10 days to say, hey, we're taking a look at this, but to your point, it's not really one record here you're asking for. You're asking for some research involved to determine what even records exist. So we're going to trigger the second one. It gives us a little bit more breathing room. It's not forgiving, though. I'll tell you that 25 days comes up quick, particularly when the conveyor belt does not stop at the agency. And I feel like Laverne and Shirley, a dated reference as it is, you know, where it's just coming and coming. We don't have the time to just shut the doors and let that
I
go.
want to be, you know,
Oh, it's a little older, right? That's
the
even
main
worse.
thing for me right now is that, you know, we are having difficulties in regards to our budget, and I want to show the residents that we are being fiscally responsible. And I know that there's a lot of time that gets spent on public records requests, and we need to be able to, if something comes in, you review it and say, this is going to be more than, you know, the normal, you open the drawer, pull it out, copy it, and
Right.
give it to them.
Right, and I will talk to the departments and say, when I think it's something more extensive.
Yeah.
How much time do you think this is gonna take? And they'll kind of go through it.
Yeah, and Adam said that he has letters, he has like letter templates that he'd be more than glad to let us use
Okay,
if it has that. And that way we can say, well, we're gonna have to, you know, talk to a vendor to get emails, and you know, there's other costs involved in just copy It's not as easy as jumping on and
Yeah,
pulling it out.
exactly.
It takes a little bit of time.
Can-
Teresa?
So you're talking about having to send these to Guardian, and that, of course, adds time and expense to it. Is there software, resources, people, something that we can do to cut down the times that it has to go to Guardian?
I don't think so, because it has to be captured at the server level, I believe, and that's
Yeah,
correct.
'cause the request comes in for, we're talking about requests for emails or requests for, that's typically the thing that would go to Guardian.
Right.
Or if it's for a different department, like if it's for the water department, they have White Mountain. I think you guys have a different
Correct.
email company that handles your email. So that outside company is the one that archives all of those
Those
old
certain
emails. So
databases?
it's not the, I think the risk that you run if you don't send it out to that person is that you're not going to be completely compliant with the response. And then you run the risk of running afoul of the state of withholding records, unintentionally.
Right.
But if you try to let just some staff member say, oh, I can find all my emails about this, you run the risk that they're not going to find them all. Whereas the places like Guardian and White Mountain have protocols for how they do their searches that are compliant with
Right,
it.
and then they have their own protocols, like for Guardian, there has to be 2 signatures on the request to go out there because they have to cover themselves as well.
Yeah,
You know?
because they're incurring costs at that point. And I think that the most important part of the protocol, I think, needs to be if you're touching an outside vendor, you got to get a quote first, and they have to pay it before we touch the outside vendor. So if you're going to Guardian, if you're going to White Mountain, if you have to go to TCAM to get videos, and it's a vendor that's not a town department, the first and foremost thing is we need to get an estimate from that vendor as to what it's going to cost, and we need to send that out.
And you mentioned TCAM, that TCAM is a vendor, they are not the town. That's a big misnomer that people think that TCAM is the town. It is not. It's a separate
The entity we have a contractual relation with.
Correct. So if there's if they're requesting records, it actually doesn't go through Kathy. They'll have to ask TCAM, and TCAM will be the one to say whether or not they want to be able to release the records or not. It's completely up to them.
And so, but I think that kind of, and I think that's something that I think we just need to kind of keep in everybody's head, is that the minute you're talking to a vendor, they're going to charge us. And the minute they're going to charge us, we need to get an invoice and an estimate and send it back out to the requester and say, you have to pay this first, because it's not fair to the townsfolk for us to be incurring charges when there's a possibility you might just walk away and not pay for it.
Yeah, having done this now and thrown some elbows and gotten to, a point where we've had hearings about these and back and forth with public records and the education that we've had and we've all had, I think I'm left with 2 big takeaways. One is really having a clear understanding of the exceptions to public records laws and the things that are a public record and things that are not a public record. And asking questions is not a public record. I mean, there are things that you can do to significantly cut down your time and just understanding and distinguishing what is and is not a public record, number one. And number 2, I think for us, and this may have some relevancy on your end as well, is realizing what you have to keep and what you do not have to keep, and having a purging policy that's consistent with public records law, I think is critical, because all you're doing is hanging on to liabilities that you don't need to hang on to. Public records, I think, is very thoughtful in what they make you keep and the timelines they make you keep them for. I think they're driven by policy, they're driven by some study, they're driven by the legal process and legal system. So we can take a lot of guidance from those laws and develop processes within our agency and within our different departments to purge when we need to purge. And that way we're not sifting through irrelevant data to get to relevant data. I'm hesitant to do that in purposes of being as transparent as I can. And you do have to have sign off to destroy those records, and there is a process for that. And I certainly think that you should adhere to that. But I do think that the law is written in a very thoughtful and deliberate way and really does account for the reasons you would keep records. So I do think that those 2 things I really try to underscore a lot at our department. Understanding public records, what they are, what the exceptions to that rules and laws are, and then 2, what are our responsibilities as far as what we have to keep, how long, and do we have processes in place to make sure that stuff is taken care of in a timely fashion.
Joe, do you have anything? So how would you guys, what would your suggestions be about moving forward with this? Would you want us to take a stab with working with town council and then letting you guys pour over it and?
I think that'd be a great idea. Boilerplate policy would be good. I'm sure that Adam understands that we're under some different provisions, and I know he's good about carving out the departments that have different, if you're an enterprise, you may have different records, requests and different, schedules that you need to keep it for.
Yeah.
And then review it and then kind of go back and forth. That would be a good idea, I think.
Okay.
Making sure that ours doesn't step on it or vice versa.
Right. So what I can do is I'll go ahead and talk with Adam. It really would be updating what we have currently in the system, in regards to that. So, I'll give him what we have, and then, I know that he's got a couple of, like I said, templates that we can kind of follow. But I think if we're all on the same page, it'll streamline the request itself, number one, but number two is we need to be able to charge right up front. So that we're getting the money up front before we even do it, so we're not spinning our wheels. Because I know how frustrating it is when you put it all together
And, yeah, it's there.
so I'm good with that. If you guys are good with that,
Excellent.
and I appreciate both of your time.
Very well.
both for coming.
Very well. Thank you.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you.
4.5, review and approve NPC pest control contract. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns about that? Nope. We'll entertain a motion to approve the Montechusett Region Pest Control, Inc. for the 24-25 contract.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Tuesday, Marshall.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton, Uranium minutes. 4.6. It has been brought to my attention that we have an individual that has more than 30 years service with the town.
46, to be exact.
The question is, our standard was to send out a certificate of appreciation. And after some conversations with several people, I'm thinking that we could do something a little more with somebody that has that amount of service. So coming up with an idea of maybe doing a plaque for somebody over 30 years, if they've spent over 30 years. I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are.
I'm off with plaques. I got a bunch hanging on my wall.
I think we need to do a plaque.
For over 30 years. So we can, or we can change, put it to whatever time period it is. But I know that go ahead.
My only concern is to whether or not that's gonna be considered to be a public purpose for purposes of spending town funds.
Say again?
Whether or not that would be considered to be a public purpose for purposes of spending town funds. So like a certificate is something that's not significant use of town resources, but buying a plaque, is that the kind of, I'm just trying to say, how's that different from us sending flowers to someone who's passed away, which we can't do because that's not a town purpose.
Yeah.
You're sending something to an individual. I'm just throwing that out there as that, we've had those issues come up as to whether or not we as a town are allowed to spend money that way.
If it's under $25,
Yeah, it's not an ethics. I mean, there's a $50 ethics thing. So if it's under $50, it's not an ethics issue. The question is whether or not, like for instance, we can't buy food for a meeting of staff.
if it's under $50, we could use our own money and do it.
Oh, there's no question that you guys could use your own money to do it. I'm just wondering. I just wanted to. I'm not trying to be a fly in the ointment. I just wanted to say.
Yes, you are.
Just wanted to say that we've had concerns come up over the past year about you know, different kind of spending that has kind of maybe run afoul, and we couldn't
So-
do that kind of spending.
What are the rules? It could, like, 3 selectmen, can you do 50, 50, 50, and 150? No, right? It has to be less than
It would
50,
be the value of the item would have to be $50 or less.
even if it's from 3 of us.
I mean, that's not, a plaque is certainly less than $50. It's not a.
Right.
I don't think it's not a concern about the cost of the item for me. It's more a concern about, we've worked hard to make sure that we're following all the right protocols fiscally, and expenditures on that sort of thing might run afoul of our accountant saying you can't spend town money on that. Like when we were going to spend town money on, contemplated spending money on flowers from the Board of Selectmen for someone who passed away, and we were informed that that's not a town expense, so we had to pay for that ourselves.
I know when I was on the school committee, we always gave the chair, when they retired, we always gave them a plaque. But we couldn't use school funds for it, and we all just pitched in.
And that's the thing. So we couldn't use town. I think doing it is a great idea. I think it's an important thing. I'm just not sure we can use town money to do it.
I'll make it simple. Whatever we need to do, donate the $50, but I think we should do a plaque.
That I
don't
agree
mind
with
it.
too. I
Yeah,
don't mind
We can
paying
split
either.
it 3 ways.
You know, I
pay for
agree.
it.
I'll
I
just
got
pay
no
the
problem.
$50 and just we've got to say the right wording on this plaque.
Well, for the individual, we can deal with that outside of the meeting, but I was looking at, I guess we're not gonna have a policy because we.
Okay,
It would be something that you guys do
individually.
outside of spending town money. And that's just,
All right, so. why don't we
Ross
do
might
that?
disagree with me though.
No, I don't. I don't want to be the fly in the ointment because I know that's still your role for the next couple of days.
2 more days.
I kind of feel that 30 years, thanks, here's a plaque is kind of minimal.
I feel that way with a certificate of appreciation.
Yes. As Eric explained, you can't give them $1,000, thank you for your service, which would be more meaningful. And you can't ask the selectmen to cough that up on their own.
Sure.
So maybe it's the plaque and the recognition celebration. At least get everybody together and let people elsewhere in town know that, hey.
Well, just for the record, they did have a thing at the firehouse a week ago, over a week, I think. And it was out there, it was a barbecue, and a lot of people showed up and thanked them, but I think this here should at least come from the board to say, they've already done the public thing, people know, but I think bring him in with the fire department in the background and get it presented from the board to him. It ain't like we're just giving them a plaque, the fire department has really gone above and beyond, did a great thing, it was a great showing. And great food, and I just think this is just more the board.
Okay.
That's,
I think something is
At
better
the
than nothing.
minimum, it needs to be done at this meeting, but it would be even better, in my opinion, if it's done at a town meeting. Out of everybody.
So the question is whether that's time.
Well,
That's true.
some of those are announcements that maybe the moderator starts off town meeting. I want to recognize the following people
Right.
who are retiring
My
this
own
year.
town used to do that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard town moderators do that.
That isn't as timely as a plaque and maybe
So-
coming to this meeting.
we can pick a
So
plaque.
we don't need a policy, we just.
So we don't
that.
need a policy and we don't need a vote because it seems like we are all in agreement. So we'll work with Sabrina to get something together.
Right wording on it for him, and I'll just pay the $50, that's what it is. And we're gonna present it to him at a.
Yeah, we can do it in a select.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, recognizing and giving a plaque. That's not
Okay.
an issue.
4.7, discuss refund of previously paid fee by a constable applicant. want to deal with this?
So I can explain, I think folks will remember, Francis Dold, had applied to be a constable. He applied when we were working on the constable policy, so his application was held until the constable policy was finalized. Once the constable policy was finalized, he paid $150 as required by the policy to apply. He was not selected as a constable, and the last time the board met about the constable policy, because we were having some concerns about it, the policy was changed such that a person could make a request of the Board of Selectmen to get a refund of that $150 if they weren't actually selected.
If they were selected.
If they weren't selected.
Yeah, I think they could. I think the policy says you can request a refund of the $150 fee for the board. So the question is, does the board wish to refund this fee? It's making the request.
Being a constable, I mean, I was on the assumption that they, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe we have to listen to the tape, but I thought it was they could request the money back if we hired them. That's what we talked about. Go, get it, come present it.
The policy states, this is amendment number 2 that was signed into, it was adopted on 4/16/24. The application process, under the application process, number 7 states, the select board reserves the right to waive any fees associated with this application process.
So I don't think there's a.
Right.
Wasn't-
So
it's
do
not
we-
locked in
Do
one
we
way.
need to make a motion? Is that how it works? So we just didn't looking for an agreement.
I think because it's the board, there would need to be a motion and a vote.
So I make a motion that we refund the constable fee that was paid for, what's the person's name?
Francis Dold.
Frank,
Francis Dold.
Francis Dole.
Dold.
Dole.
I'll second it, but we have discussion.
My biggest concern is that when he first applied, there wasn't even $150 fee, and that just came as a surprise to him. It was also a very big surprise he wasn't selected, but you never know. Nobody knows why any of the things happen when you get involved with the state. So I feel I'd like to see that if the money's returned to him.
He wasn't hired. I don't, there's reasons we didn't put him on, so why are we gonna give back money that, you know, you wanna talk about fiscally responsible, you gotta be fiscally responsible here.
He originally applied, while we were putting everything together.
Yes.
So this was on June 14th, 22. The constable policy came back out, was adopted on 9/20/22. There was a memorandum that went out in November 15th of 22. That stated that the Board of Selectmen had created a constable policy, and the policy can be found at, and it gives the link. It says, for prospective applicants, should you be interested in serving as constable for the town of Townsend, please fill out the attached and forward to this office with a check or cash payment of $150 covering the application fee. So this was sent out to the individual.
Right, but that was after his application was already in, right?
And then on January of 23rd is when we received $150 in the office today, cash for Francis Dold application. So he paid $150 after.
Right, after he got the letter, because he hadn't turned back.
Correct. So we didn't
But
run,
he
we
took
didn't,
his application before the policy.
but we didn't get the money until after.
Because there was no policy for the money.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Then on February 17th of 23 is when the letter had gone out. I'm sure that to Teresa, saying that he was not accepted. There was also a question of him reactivating his application or whatever.
I don't think, that's been resolved, that's not
an issue now?
It's not an issue now.
So this is just the
This is just
$150.
whether or not there's $150.
So I guess at this point, it's any further discussion on this? Those in favor of the motion?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Motion is to refund his money. Or Shank, no.
Jessex and Iranian, no. Um, 4.8. Last year we did, we sponsored the refreshments, what's the term?
The lawn party.
The lawn party, yes, I was, Betty May made sure that I said the right thing. We sponsored the lawn party for the Kids Country Playground Committee. We have been scheduled, or the Kids Country Playground Committee has been scheduled for July 18th. I've been approached and asked by the committee if we would help them out again this year. I don't have a problem with it. Either of you two have a problem with it?
What time would it be?
I want to say we got there around 6 last time. I can't
The
remember.
band concert starts at 7. I think it was more like 5.
Well, we get there at 5. I've got the grill coming at around 5 o'clock, 5:30.
Gotta get set up.
Yeah.
Everything ready.
That took us about an hour to get that done. And then, or if you want to come, when do we start serving? We didn't start serving until,
Well, people get there around 6:15, 6:30.
yeah,
and we
so around
started
6:30, I think we started.
Serving.
So I have no problem doing it. Teresa?
I can be tentative, I can't be sure yet.
Okay. Joe?
I'll do it.
Okay. So I will let Karen know that we will definitely do that again this year for them.
There's 2 of us, right?
4.9, review, vote on municipal relief transfers. We need to jump in front.
That was just posted, right?
Sabrina, do you have the originals or just Chaz have?
Have them.
So, this is the time of year when we start doing municipal relief transfers. We will say that I'm going to give all the credit to Katie Kazanjian down in the accountant's office. We have significantly less transfers this year than we've had in past years. She has been doing a really good job of making sure the departments aren't getting in trouble with their lines and making sure they're staying within their spending for the year. So there's only a small amount of transfers that we're requesting. So we have this year 4. The first one is for $1,040 to be transferred to the Neshoba Board of Health line will be transferred from the landfill line. This is a deficit. The bill for the Neshoba Board of Health came in as higher than was in the budget for FY '24 by $1,040. So this is it's coming from another Board of Health line that oversees the landfill.
Are we gonna do these one by one?
Yes.
That's not the way they're in here.
So I'm sorry. Do you want me to start in the other direction?
Yeah, let me give you,
Was it the 72,000? The first one. The health insurance one.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So there's a transfer of $72,000. We transferred to health insurance from two lines. One is $15,000 that's in the unemployment line, and $60,000 from the highway wages line. This health insurance line, the $72,000 is health insurance cost that was over what was
They
anticipated.
were transferring just 72, because there's more than that in 2 line items.
60 and 15, you know, there's
60 and 15, you
75.
said? Oh, you said more than,
Not requested is 72,000, 60K.
I thought you said
from-
50.
Yeah, no, I think that is a. I apologize. I think that's
You
a.
did say 50.
Yeah, it's 60 and 15,
Yeah.
75,000. 75,000, 60 from highway wages and 15 from unemployment.
So I'll entertain a motion to effect a municipal transfer from the from highway wages, line item ending in 5110 for 60,000, and unemployment, line item ending in 5750 for 15,000,
So moved.
to health insurance, line ending in 5740.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Did you say motion?
Joe Shank, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
The second transfer is to general insurance from veterans benefits. So it's general. We'd be looking for a motion to transfer $2,000 from veterans benefits line ending in 5300 to the general insurance line ending in 5740.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
Yeah. What, how are those lines related?
They're not.
So what are you?
When we do municipal relief transfers, we're just taking money from one line to try to cover a deficit in another line. And the veterans benefit line has a significant amount of money available at the end of the year. It's not something that we could save. It's going to go into free cash if we
We
don't.
need to fix that.
Yeah, so the general insurance line has an increase because we've added vehicles to our fleet above and beyond.
so, all right, we're gonna talk about that, but have we, last time we had conversation, the insurance is that on here somewhere?
That is 411. Yeah, so the general insurance line is in deficit because of new vehicles that were added that increased the auto insurance line over what was originally quoted. That's the reason for that increase.
The motion on the table, is it seconded?
Joe said.
Joe seconds it. All those in favor?
Teresa Moss, no?
Joe Shank, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
The third one is it's a $58 deficit. There was just a error in the amount for the MRPC dues that were due. So we'd be looking for a motion to transfer from the veterans benefits line 50 that ends in 5300 to the MRPC dues line that ends in 5730 for $58.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa Moss, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And then the third one was the first one that I started talking about, which is the Neshoba Board of Health line. So we'd be looking for a motion to transfer money from the landfill line that ends in 5300 to the Neshoba Board of Health line that ends in 5300 for an amount of $1,040.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
She's saying most, yes?
Boshank, yes.
Sussex and Rainey, yes. I was looking at the VBA, that's why it's pausing. Sure. I will sign those.
Yeah, these things be due and signed by the chair.
Sir?
So, so Beth was in the. I can text her. She was
She might be in
on.
there. She shut off her video. Beth, are you still on? I didn't even realize we went past 7 o'clock. All caught up.
Yeah.
Hey, here I
Hi,
am.
Beth.
Hello. Hello.
I'm sorry, I went past 7 o'clock and didn't even think about it.
That's quite all right. It's quite all right. Thank you for
All
having me.
So, I wanted to jump to the 4.2, discuss smart proposal on enhancing the ride service. This, as you know, is the bus service that we're providing for individuals. Beth, you want to give them a little understanding of what we're doing here tonight, if you don't mind?
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to. So the bus service started as a free service. The Townsend shuttle, I think it started, almost 7 months ago now.
Correct.
The ridership has been a little bit low. So it was running 7 days a week, and then the weekend routes were dropped. And they're still finding the ridership a little bit on the low side. So we had a meeting with MART representatives, and they're proposing changing the pickup to an on-call service, sort of an on-demand, rather than having the shuttle come twice a day, to Townsend and not pick up passengers. So basically, that's the topic of discussion, is how to transition, whether you want to transition to that, and the logistics of doing that.
So we also had a discussion in regards to, there was a representative from Groton as well that was interested in also having MARC service out there, and they asked us if we would contact the Groton individual to see if they would want to come over here and use our facility as well. I think being able to regionalize, Beth, it took us, how long did it take us to get this established? It was a pretty long process, wasn't it?
Yeah, the town had to be, join MART, be a member community. It was a lot of work, attending meetings and proposals and that sort of thing to get the service in the first place. So it's really a good thing for the town if we can keep it with the on demand and market it. I think that would be key, is to get the marketing going, and like you said, the regionalization with some abutting towns.
Yeah.
So some specifics. So if it is on demand, it would be something like you sign up within an X amount of period. It can't be like asked that morning and hopefully show up, right? So
Correct.
can you give me some of those ideas?
Yeah, there was a flyer that was in, you want to show that to Teresa? That's what they gave us those are the proposed times.
Okay.
And then they would have to call in advance to be able to say that they're going to have service.
And we would open this to Groton, maybe Pepperell and Ashby as well.
If they were willing to do that. Mark said that they don't have a problem with us doing that. I think, it would help regionalize the area with those times. That's number one. I will say that the numbers, I put the spreadsheet in the SharePoint for you guys. The numbers aren't high, but I will say that they're according to what they were telling us. There were a couple of people that were
Right.
utilizing it often, right, Beth? The one person was
Yep.
using it almost every day.
Yeah, so that's good. I'd like to see perhaps some students get in there. That's why I was wondering about a little outreach to the high school seniors when they're making their choices for college. I mean, they can easily jump into Fitchburg and get on the train and get into Boston. So we can, hopefully do some more outreach and some more marketing and really utilize that. I think the seniors are pretty much all set with the shuttle bus that they have, but I think we need to reach out to commuters and students maybe who want to go to school in Boston but don't want to, board at the university or whatever, so. There's a lot of, I think, Fitchburg State, you can, from Fitchburg Intermodal, you can get a bus to Fitchburg State. A lot of really good options.
So what is this costing us per year?
So this is the fee for MART is being paid out of the MBTA allocation we get from the state. That was money that that's the town's contribution to the MBTA. It comes out of state funding, so we never see it. It's kind of like hey, there's $19,000. That's Townsend's portion that's going to the MBTA, but we don't pay it. The state pays it. So MART, because we signed up for MART, can use that money because it's for
So we
transportation.
wouldn't receive that money if we didn't have this, we wouldn't receive it.
Right. So if we canceled this, we wouldn't get any money back. So it's not costing us any
Wanna
money.
make sure everyone understands, we're not
And how long
spending
is that gonna
tax.
That MBTA thing is in the state allocation every year.
It is, okay, thank you.
And what Beth and I are, and the reason why I wanted Beth on here is number one, to give her recognition for her work on this, because she's doing a lot of work outside of her normal stuff. But we would like to move it to an on-demand service for right now, and we were told that we can also change it back to a scheduled service at any time going forward. That's number one. And number two is Beth and I will be looking into and discussing with Mark the marketing end of it. So we would be marketing more to the schools, Fitchburg State, and any other, because they have a marketing department with Mark, and we'll be working with them to get flyers out, and they have mailers and stuff, so we'd be able to, at their expense, not ours. So if you guys are okay with it, then good with it. All right, Teresa,
Okay,
you're okay with that?
Yep.
All right, so Beth, we'll work on this tomorrow, and we'll give Bruno a call and let him know that we're going to do that, and then we'll get the particulars, and then I'll submit it back out to the board.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Have a good night. Bye-bye now.
Uh, 410, the Consolidated Water Highway Union Contract.
Yeah, so this is not, just to be clear, not any new provisions. These provisions are ones that were already voted in the MOU that we did. We voted on earlier for the water highway, and also every MOU that has been in existence since the last signed contract, which I think was in 2016. So there's been a bunch of MOUs in the interim. We have been working very hard over the last couple of years to consolidate all of the contracts. We don't have those outstanding, sheafs of paper that are MOUs that we have to interpret. This is the last one to be consolidated. So it just requires a vote of the board to approve the consolidated contract as included in the SharePoint.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I have a comment. Thank you, because that was a mess. And it's nice to see that all of the contracts are straightened out.
Yeah, I was glad to finally get this last one done.
That was the worst one too.
Yeah, it was just the one that was the hardest because of some moving parts on the union side made this one particularly challenging. But getting the all of the contracts approved and signed was one of my personal goals, to try to get those all consolidated. So just to make it just easy for the next guy, to be
This
able
guy
to.
thanks you for that.
So there's only one contract you have to look at, and all the reams of paper
Well,
don't
it
mean
was-
anything.
Before, it was like, remember the holiday, we have to look at all the different contracts separate. This one does this and this one does that, and it's just such a.
This MOU goes to that, and gotta,
Oh, yeah, it's the 15 MOUs that break it, because this one amends an earlier one, and so you have to read them in order.
So,
It was brutal.
all
So,
those in favor?
Say Moshe?
George yes. Chad Sexton, Duranian, yes.
so I will have, we need to get 2 wet signatures from the board on this. So before the end of the night, I'll print out the second one for just one to sign, and then I'll print out the second one to sign. Sign it both.
And then you will sign
And
it.
then the union will sign it. My anticipation is tomorrow.
4.11, review or vote on the general insurance quotes for fiscal year 25.
So we did get 2 quotes in for general insurance. We took a look at them, and it appears as though we have the ability to get insurance within the budget that we set in the annual budget, the FY25 budget. However, before the board votes on it, I want to sit down with Jason Farrow, who came with the low bid, and make sure that we're getting apples to apples, and just go over and make sure that all the deductions the deductibles are all the same, but there's nothing hidden in there that I have missed, and then we put it on for the 18th.
Yeah,
to vote on that.
we've done some, looking at just the figures and not exactly what it is, because we had questions about the cyber insurance and that kind of stuff. We just want to make sure that the coverages are the same.
Yeah.
We're not,
And I think there are. I was able to find some of them, but some of them it's not immediately clear.
yeah.
You know how insurance works.
Well,
Somebody doesn't leave the right
for
thing.
example, my business came up for renewal, and insurance company decided in fine print, well, we're gonna change the value of your building $200,000. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what they want to do. Well,
Yeah.
that ain't what I want to do.
Right,
Right,
right.
so just make sure we,
Yeah. And
we're
so,
not getting over insured.
And I appreciate Eric's input, because the 3 of us looked at it today.
Yeah.
My main concern is that we just have the same coverage as we had last year.
yeah, and that's what I want to make sure. As long as we're comparing apples to apples, it's very, it's easy to tell what we're doing. The other thing I'm going to do is make sure, I'm going to send out a copy of all the vehicles that they have recorded and the properties they have recorded, and make sure that those are all still accurate. And because if some of those vehicles have been disposed of, then we can drop them off the insurance. And
All right, so I would like to put that on
the
the
18th.
18th for vote. Then we can decide on that. You okay with that, Teresa?
Yes, I am.
4.12, grants options and letter of support for underutilized properties grants. All right. I put a lot of stuff in, I apologize, in SharePoint in regards to this.
Yeah, correct my French about.
To give you guys an idea of what the reasoning behind all of this, I took our selectmen's goals, what we've all decided on what we want to be able to work with in the next fiscal year. And I sat down with Aaron, our grant administrator, and we looked at what the grant schedules were and what you guys put down for, or what we all put down for what our goals are for next year. And we actually consolidated a lot of ideas that you guys had into a couple of grants that we want to go for right away. All right, so I'm going to talk about, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the more immediate one that's due in 2 days. That we've pretty much got it written, but I just need to get approval. And the letter of support, if you could give me the okay to write a letter of support. But we'll talk about what they are. The first thing that I had put in there was all of the grants that we discussed. So these are all the grants that would be available for all of the things that we had put down in our goals that we have available. We're not going to be applying for all of them, but I'm just saying that the granting is going to be there. The goal that, or the one of the biggest ones that I had for 3 years, I think, Joe, you had it on, actually, all three of us, we had it on there, is to develop our historic buildings. Excuse me. We have achieved that goal except for one building. All right, so we had the center fire station and the old harbor fire station is both of those are going to be under renovation. One is under now, one will be under shortly. We also have the harbor church is getting redone, and this is all not with town money, so no
Not a
resident,
penny
not a
of the
penny of
town.
tax money has been done on that. One of the biggest things when we initially started this process, if you guys can remember, I'm really doing this more for the public's knowledge. We had had a survey, and we enlisted feedback from all of the residents on all of these buildings that are now being worked on. One of those buildings was the Hart Library over here. Now, the Hart Library, it came up with, the majority of them were that it would be something to do with the arts, would be a gallery, it would be some sort of meeting room. Because of the way the funding was, that building was kind of left out of it. And I have been pounding the pavement, looking at ways in which we can get that building at least to utilize. The grant that I would like to go for is the underutilized properties grant. And that grant is only for an architect and an engineer, and that's really for planning purposes, so that they will go in, they will look at it, they will look to see what needs to be done as far as upgrades. We also know that it's going to need to be ADA compliant, so they're going to give us ideas on what that is. So that grant is only for the planning purposes of it. Okay, that's number one. Number two is what we discussed earlier with Margaret in regards to the rural towns. They are looking to increase tourism. There's also 2 other grants that I'd like to go for the Hart Library. One is for mass development. And mass development will assist us in being able to do any structural or any kind of grants that we would need to do for renovations for that. The other grant is for the Mass Cultural Council. And the Massachusetts Cultural Council will help us develop a plan and help us be able to fund that plan to turn that into a gallery. That would be also part of the local cultural council that we have here, that Alice Struthers is the chairperson for. This will enhance 2 different things. Number one, it would increase the cultural impact of the town. We also have the museum on Main Street that we talked about earlier. That would be a prime place to be able to have something like that in there, which we are still in contention for, which I think is a good idea. The other thing is connectivity to other the other resources we have in town. So we have the rail trail that's right around the corner from here. We have the historic Harbor Village that they're planning on putting. So it's all within foot bicycle path. And I think it fits into all of the planning that we've done over the last 3 years, actually 4 years, 4 years now. So what I would be looking for from the both of you is your permission to be able to write a letter of support for the underutilized properties grant, and finish up with Aaron to be able to send that grant out. I think it's due on the 6th.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion?
Just can you tell me how this fits into the preservation project plan? Are they interacted or are those separate?
So that's a good question.
Thank you.
The preservation fund, it fits in two different ways. I would like to be able to put in a grant for the preservation fund to be able to get that on the National Register and the State Register of Historic Properties. If we can do that, it opens up for state and federal grants that we wouldn't normally have if it's not on the register. So that's why I have that in there.
Okay, thank you.
The, there are disability grants that are available that we could use for ADA. Because remember, we didn't have, I think you were on when we were talking about, the RFP that went out for that building, we didn't get any responses to it.
Right.
So we said that let's try to do it piecemeal. So this is my way of kind of trying to do it piecemeal. To get the building at least into some condition where we can actually use it. I think that was, what's that?
Understood.
There's also other grants that are on here that I want you guys to kind of keep your eyes and ears open. There's a couple of transportation grants which we can use for the MBTA that we just talked about. They have a shelter that they'll be able to give us for the bus, for the MART bus that we just talked about. And we talked about putting it down on the bottom of the field and maybe put some parking down there. There's also the, Teresa, you had on one of your goals was to talk about the film industry and to kind of encourage that. If you don't mind, I'm going to task you with a couple of things. The Massachusetts Film Office has a listing, and if you could make sure that we update that listing, and maybe Eric is currently the contact on that.
Okay.
But somehow get contact with them, find out what else we need to do. They're looking for information about our town, some of our history, pictures, and all that kind of stuff. If you could be so kind as to follow up on that. Once we get registered with them, we'd be able to then, if they have any production companies that are looking for remote locations or whatever, they'll be getting in contact with you and all of that. And Joe, I didn't leave you out. I hope you don't mind me volunteering you for a couple of things. When we get to the point where we have gone through the building assessments, we're going to need to look at if there is going to be some fixing on some of these buildings that we know, you and I already know that there's a couple that need some work. We're going to need to talk with Aaron to see if we can get some grant money to be able to get those buildings fixed. Or even just upgrades or whatever we need to do.
And there are some buildings that do need some serious work.
Yes. That'll dovetail into the ADA grants, the ADA assessments that we're going to do. So what I'm trying to do is get them all together so we can get it all done at the same time. Biggest bang for the buck. And I guess, again, I'm going to stress that this is not tax money. This is money to get our town buildings fixed with grants.
Back to the Hart Library, has any consideration, or can you explain to me how they would determine if there's any value of books? I know people are into antique architecture stuff. I mean, is that what they would do with that first
There is
book?
no books in there.
Yeah,
No.
the library, when they vacated the space, they took out all of the books.
vacated.
They
Yeah.
vacated.
They left it. The things that are over there is
Junk.
junk.
So-
and
Junk.
There's
It
no
is
old
architecture
files that are
that's or
molding.
anything?
The interior architecture is still interesting, but I think the goal would be using these kind of grants to try to preserve it as opposed to
Okay,
dispose
gotcha,
of it.
We can find use for it, but I want to preserve it.
gotcha.
There's some documents that need to be preserved and retained.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any that have historical value to them.
Yeah, there's just a lot. I'll show you the pictures afterwards. But
Okay.
I do want to say that there's a lot of Townsend history in that building, and I
Oh, wow.
really do think we need to, I mean, that fireplace is gorgeous in there, the
Yeah.
chandeliers in there are gorgeous.
So that's what I was thinking about. Are we gonna try to preserve that all? or
Yeah,
we
some of the
gonna-
shelving that's in there, it was the old bookcases, they
Get
have
the
the,
lights you
they
turned
have the
on
gooseneck
yourself.
night lights on them, and yeah, it's just, but right now it's like a paranormal adventure. But, there may be some ways for us to maybe even rent out the bottom for somebody or artists or whatever. I mean, to be able to create a fund to keep the building, maintaining it with its own funds is another way to do it. But again, going through Mass Cultural, they'll be able to help us set up something, and if we needed to start a fund or however you would do that, they will point us in the right direction for that. And that will go into hand in hand with what the residents have said they wanted for that building. So if you could, at some point when we get to, when Aaron and I finish, separately, you guys can contact her and just talk with her about your pieces of the pie and see what she can do for the grants. She is an amazing find for us. She's very easy to work with, and she has a lot of knowledge. Excuse me, about
We gotta get the assessment back first, so we know what we're up against.
for you, yes.
Mr. Chair, there is still a motion on the table that just needs to get voted on for the.
Letter of support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Bochamp, yes.
Just like to me. Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure.
And I did want to follow up with the NFC grant, that's the National Fitness Council. We are currently waiting for a cement vendor.
I sent that out, just so you know, hopefully next day or so I'll get it.
Okay,
I'll get a price. Go
okay.
from there.
I also talked with the building inspector, and it's, when he says when we're ready to go, just, bring
Bring the paperwork.
in the paperwork, and he's already reviewed it. He said that's gonna be fine. So that would be the next step. But I do want to say that the recreation department has really done a lot of work on this. This has been something that, again, it's been 3 years, 4 years. And that's it on grants. You guys got any comments on grants at this point?
No, we just need $1.7 million. Where can we get it?
They've been looking for that grant.
They ain't out there. I can't find it.
4.13, this is in regards to the extended septic for Harvard Church. You want to help me out with that one?
Sure. So as folks may know, the Historic Society has engaged with the donor to do renovation of the Harbor Church. It's in process. That renovation does require an updated septic system. So the current proposal is for a piece of land on the other side of 119 to be donated as the place for the septic. So the septic system would have to run underneath the state highway. This involves our friends at MassDOT. And so this would be a letter of support from the town for the extending that septic system under Route 119 to be able to have a septic on the far side. If this wasn't approved, there's not sufficient space, I don't believe, over there for them to have septic.
We gotta correct that.
Yeah.
That's all through you, Mr. Chair, just to correct it. The project as it stands now is 100% approved. There is a septic system there already approved on that property.
Oh, I thought it wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I want, just
Oh,
so,
no, thank
so
you for
this
correcting
doesn't, so this doesn't get miscollaborated here. So the present condition, the way it's set up right now is there is a septic system going to be approved as you drive into the right-hand side. What they would like to do is that takes away a lot of parking there. The donor, as you said, is willing to give some land across the street so they can pump under underneath 119 into a new septic across the street, and in turn, that into approximately
It's more
20
parking.
or 25 parking
I
spots
apologize
there.
for that.
But I just want to make that correct, so
No,
it
no,
isn't
thank you. I
like
appreciate
it's not approved. It is approved as it is, but it would really be a great asset for the town, because if they utilize that, it gives that much more parking, and it's a better, I think it's a
Yeah,
better.
and it was also mentioned to me that the conservation would feel much more comfortable having it away from the.
The further you pull that away from the
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 pond, the
pond,
better
yeah.
it would be. But there is a septic design approved, but it'd be nice if we as a board, authorize chair or whoever, send a letter and see if we can go underneath the road. That'd be awesome.
And the donation is for the creation of the septic system and the land?
For the land, the septic's already being paid under the private donor.
But I mean, the septic on the other side will also be paid.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it'd be everything. There wouldn't be any cost to anybody. If that was done.
Okay,
So I'd entertain a motion to allow the chair to write a letter of support for.
so moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
pushing kiss.
So. Yes, we have a lot to do tomorrow, so. Thursday, that's right. All right, work session 5.0. ARPA funds. I put in what we had for ARPA funds. Part of the reason why I did this is to get Ross up to speed on what we're doing. We have this as a revolving item on our agenda for ARPA, so that if we have, if anything comes up during the week in regards to ARPA, we can address it in this particular section. My question to you, Eric, is that, is there any transfers or anything that we need to do right now before the end of the fiscal year?
No, the next big ARPA deadline is December. That's the date at which everything has to be obligated. The federal government changed ARPA rules such that if the funds that are not obligated according to their guidelines by December of 2024 will revert back to the federal government.
Okay.
So what
We have obligated a lot of these funds.
right. So what counts as obligated, and it's important for I think people to keep that in mind, is if funds are being spent on salary and benefits, those are counted as obligated. So any line that's a salary line or benefit line is counted as obligated. If we have written contracts for funds, that's counted as obligated. So anything that on there that's got a written contract, that's counted as obligated. If we've got POs or invoices, those are counted as obligated. So we can issue purchase orders through the accountant's office for specific items, and the purchase order does count as an obligation. Katie and Jennifer from Capital Strategic Solutions and I, along with Elizabeth, who's from Markham, have had several meetings on it to make sure that we grasp the current federal regulations on obligation. But we did sit down and go through all of the lines. There are some that still need to be obligated. So for instance, the refrigerator, the $12,000 for the refrigerator for TEO, we haven't signed an agreement with them yet, and they haven't gotten the money yet. So the answer, I think, in that one is just quite simply, we need to just provide them, they need to sign the sub-agreement and just write them a check for the $12,000. But I think that's the next thing. Before June, we don't need to have anything.
Now, we also talked about with the sidewalks.
Yeah, so that's the goal. Well, there's a little over $60,000 in ARPA funds that are set aside for the Mass Trail Sidewalk project. The the goal is to go out to bid for that sometime in June and hopefully have a contract sometime this summer. Once it's under contract, that becomes obligated. If for some reason that bid also fails, as the last bid failed for being too expensive, we're going to need to make sure that, if I say we, I mean the town, is going to need to make sure that we take some steps to get that money spent or obligated before December. Now, we can spend that money on our engineer, which we've already, we can, so we could probably get those funds spent on, at least part of those funds reallocated to, instead of spending from the Mass Trails, we'd spend the ARPA money, and the Mass Trails money can obviously go past December. We have an extension till next June on Mass Trails.
Okay.
So can you just help me understand what's obligated and not, just showing me one line, if I'll take a line and you show me. So I'm looking at the broadband, right? And it says year-to-date adjusted and then the actual expended, so it gives you unexpended, minus 66,509 something. Is that not obligated with the negative in front of it?
No, so the way it's listed on the spreadsheet you have doesn't sort between obligated and non-obligated.
Okay.
Whether something's obligated or not depends on whether that line is under contract or whether that line is for salary and wages. So you've got funds there for the community wellness position. Because that's for salary and wages, those funds in their entirety are considered obligated for federal purposes. The meals, the senior meals money, which means is being spent on salary and wages in the Council on Aging, is considered obligated because it's going to salary and wages.
So what about the broadband in Townsend?
The broadband is part of that was funding some of the WAN project infrastructure, and part of that was going to Guardian.
In here.
Yeah, to wiring here. So if it's not something that's already spent, I don't believe we have a subsequent contract. We would need to make sure that we obligated that before December.
Thank you.
So that's what I'm talking about, Teresa, what we don't have obligated, we might need to look at.
Yeah.
And if we can have it broken out by
And Katie is, I will just say, Katie is very much on top of this. She has a list of all of these ARPA funds, knows which ones are obligated and which ones have challenges that we have to correct before December.
And that's what I don't want. I don't want
I don't want to
Wait
wait
till
till
December,
December,
yeah.
we'll get it
Yeah,
next meeting or
because
something.
there's, and I also wanted to work into the conversation because there has been some misinformation being passed in regards to salaries that that have been, ARPA funds have been used for salaries. We have been incorporating money into our budget to make those positions sustainable. So it's not that we're on a fiscal cliff when it comes to those positions. We have been funding those a little at a time, and those positions will be fully funded by the time these funds that we've allocated have been expended.
That's the plan, to try to avoid that cliff.
Right.
Because rather than having to come up with a full salary when the ARPA funds go away.
Well, it's been
trying to.
forecasted, and we do
Plans,
have,
lights and
we are working on it.
Yes, that's the plan. Yes.
So I wanted to make sure that was brought out. As far as anything else, it would be, I think, easier for me personally to know what we have left that is not obligated. If Katie can pull that out.
Yeah, I can.
Send a copy to all of us.
Yeah, so we.
Yeah, I can talk to Katie about that.
So we can figure that out. All right, 5.1, Town Administrator Updates and Reports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A couple of different updates. The first is, we already talked about one major bill that's coming out of, that's working its way through the state legislature. There's a second one that was just announced today from the House. It's a $6.2 billion affordable housing bill in the House. Some large chunks of it are not really pertinent to Townsend, but there are several things that I wanted to highlight from this bill. The first is they're setting aside $150 million for the commercial, for city and towns to work with developers to convert commercial space or underutilized commercial space into housing space. There are a couple of things in Townsend that might fit into that into that sort of a project. I know we've had some requests that have come in for the old farm. What's the old poor farm?
Full farm trading post, yeah.
Yes.
So that building, somebody has already asked about whether or not that's possible to convert that into housing. So
The
that
old
might be,
barn.
yeah, that might be the kind of thing that if somebody could have access to some state funds to help do it, might make it, viable, economically viable. And there's some other locations in town that might. They also set aside $200 million for housing for populations that need support, so veterans, elders, and victims of domestic violence. And so everybody knows that the demographics of Townsend are such that there are a significant number of veterans, there are a significant number of elders in Townsend, so that may be another pool of funding that the town could access to if this bill gets passed. Could have access to for create some more affordable housing. The third is something that I've mentioned to members of the board before today, which is that there's a proposal in this bill to make accessory dwelling units available as a matter of right in zoning, only subject to things like an extra parking space requirement or site plan review. But they would not require a special permit any longer, and it wouldn't be subject to the town approval. It would just be in the zoning act. So this is obviously still a bill, so it hasn't been passed, but this is something I think people were forecasting was going to come down the pipe for accessory housing, accessory dwelling units. So if that bill gets passed in its current form, that is included.
So that would supersede any bylaws.
It would supersede any local zoning. If we have a zoning that says it's a special permit, but the zoning act says you don't need a special permit, the zoning
All
act
the
trumps.
special permits will be taken, gone.
All the special permits would be null and void. Importantly, in the House version of this bill, it doesn't require things to be owner occupied. Certainly doesn't require them to be affordable. You're just allowed to do it as a matter of right. One thing you can do is put a restriction on it can't be used for short-term housing, so you can't have it as an Airbnb. If the town wants to do that, they could do it. But
What's that gonna change for these houses that are out there, in-laws that are out there that the town says it only can be rented to family members?
so, as I say, the current version of the bill says it's a matter of right. So if you had a special permit for something that then becomes a matter of right, the special permit is no longer valid. However, the bill does talk about having some special conditions about size. The town could have conditions about size and conditions about site plan review and conditions about parking. And so if those were conditions that were on that the town had imposed, those conditions would still exist.
Well, I guess we'll find out where it goes,
Yeah,
because that's one of the big things that everyone talks about is, you can build an in-law apartment. Well, for example, I built one, but as long as I'm there, it's fine. When I leave, my family can't rent that to a friend or someone that has to go out to low-income housing.
Right, and so the current version of the bill, and just to be clear, it's a bill in the House, so
Yeah.
a lot could change. But the current version doesn't have any restrictions on affordability or owner occupancy.
Okay.
So,
All right, that'll be good to see.
it's just something to keep an eye on over the next few months when the House talks about it.
There's also part of that bill the main impetus behind it is to increase the housing in Massachusetts. That's the main impetus. There's been some action in regards to the Devens area.
There's something about Devens.
In density and specifically in Devens that they're gonna
allow Devens to explode, basically.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a lot more development of Devons than there has been over the last decade.
State mandated as opposed to
It's a big area out there, so.
going local, so yeah.
It'd be interesting. The second thing is I did want to give an update on today's meeting of the TA search committee. Just a very brief, very broad update, which is the search committee reviewed 16 applications today. They chose to interview 5 individuals from those 16 applications. They're having a subsequent meeting, a Zoom-only meeting on June 11th at 4 o'clock. They have already decided to do 2 nights of interviews, 2 on one night, 3 on another, but they haven't set the dates of those interviews. And I believe they asked Ross to do some outreach to the individuals.
As soon as I get the list of dates, I will contact, or Sabrina and I will contact the 5 and schedule a Zoom session.
So I just wanted that update from the TA search committee. And then the last thing is, I do want to take a minute to thank the board for the last 2 years. This is my last meeting. I am moving on.
Out of the building, yeah.
I'm moving on to a new position as the town manager in Wilmington. I'm starting next Monday. I do want to thank the board members who have all been on the board since I got here. I really appreciate having worked with the board. I really appreciate Ross, both at the beginning and the end of my tenure. I feel like I've been really fortunate to work in a town like Townsend with the great staff that work for the town and with the wonderful residents who are so concerned about the town and reach out to volunteer and spend their time on the boards and committees and come out to functions. I can honestly say that I feel like I'm a much better qualified person for municipal service as a result of my time here. It is bittersweet. I've made a lot of friends, and I've got to work with some great people, and I'm going to miss those relationships. And I did want to say thank you. I have harbored no ill feelings towards Townsend. I really enjoyed my time here. But I wanted to thank, and I want to thank Sabrina for all her help over the last couple of years, since she and I started on the same day back on May 16th, 2022. She has been an excellent, sidekick, partner in crime. She's been really spectacular, and I think she's a real asset to the town. I think the board and whoever the next TA is lucky to have her. But I could say that about lots of different staff here. There are so many people who work for this town who really love the town and want to do the best for the town. I certainly hope that the town and all the people in the town appreciate what they have in the staff that work for the town of Townsend, and I certainly appreciate all the work that they've done. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, sir.
That's it. That's my TA update.
That's your TA.
Last one.
Last
Five
up.
point two, reports from board liaisons, general government.
So, I had a couple of meetings, first was with the audit committee. We're hoping to meet with the treasurer and go through last year's audit and see where we are compared, because we were expecting this year's audit anytime now. We did get their letter to tell them it was on our way. We are being told that they do want to set a meeting and go over, the results for this year's audit, but we're hoping to at least see the letter beforehand. Are we gonna be able to get that? Then we had a joint meeting with the audit committee and the finance, just to go over, what we see, the progress we know we made, from last time, even though the treasurer wasn't able to come up, a lot of stuff we were able to go through. Had a quick meeting with Energy, nothing really big going on there, they're just continuing to work with the Green Communities grants. And, they needed confirmation that the money that came through for that one grant, to proceed, because it was approved at town hall, so they're gonna be working, with the gentleman that does the work that was approved from that. There was a conservation meeting, but it happened on the evening that I wasn't available, so.
Elected boards. This is kind of a weird time because we had such a spot that was several weeks that we didn't have any meetings, but we were busy with budget stuff, so. But I've met with the Board of Assessors, and then we also then met with properties after that. There are some properties that they're looking at that may come into decisions as far as what the town is concerned, and then I'll bring those in front of the board once that happens. Cemetery and parks, I actually had gone down, we have equipment coming for the new fitness court, and we need to store that equipment when it gets here. So I was looking, I went up to Highway and looked to see what space they have in Highway. And when I was over at Cemetery and Parks, the foreman was putting oil and changing a blade on a lawnmower. And he had to take everything out of the garage in order to change the oil and put a blade on it. And I don't know, I felt kind of bad because it's like, and then after he finished, normally it would be what, a 10-minute job or whatever, ended up being a half an hour.
And move everything back in.
Right. So anyway, I came over here. I think the best thing to do is to put that equipment over here to store it, because then they can just bring it right out to where it is after we get the concrete set and all of that kind of stuff. There's also, there could be some reorganizing, I think, over there to allow Cemetery and Parks to be able to at least do maintenance on their, there's a small bay that's over there that should be enough room for them to be able to do that. But I noticed that, and it just made sense to me in regards to that, and that's something that we can kind of work on for them. Highway Department, they're in the paving that they had already talked to us about. They're in full swing with that. There was a couple of little things, some potholes, and that had been brought to the attention of the town. He went and filled those, patched them. So he's been kind of going through what he needs to go through. Land use also, I've been working with land use on a couple of the grants. We have the Mass Trails grants for the sidewalk to connect the rail trail in the harbor. They have to also do some work on to make that ADA compliant with where the crosswalks are and stuff. But I do want to say that it's really nice to see that office fully working and doing the things that they need to do between conservation, the conservation agent, the land use, the housing, zoning, planning, and the land use. It's some good stuff to see. We also have Neshoba Valley had their graduation, which we were invited to. However, we also had the trail. So it happened on the same day, and I had already committed to speak at that, so I didn't get out to Neshoba Valley, but that's always a good thing. Planning and zoning, I do want to mention, they were really lacking in volunteers. I had put in a volunteer form after I checked with the ethics for the associate member position for the planning board. If because of all the projects we've got going on in town, if they didn't have a quorum and they didn't have an associate, they would have to cancel meetings, and they've had a couple of meetings where they couldn't move through with what they had. So I put in a volunteer form for that to help them out, under the condition that the minute somebody volunteers, then I'm gonna step right down. But they've got a lot to do, and it's frustrating for me to see a committee or a commission that wants to do something and they can't because they don't have a quorum. It becomes very, very frustrating. That's all I got. Public safety.
Public safety, we all know where they all stand. They're all sweating bullets right now. Fire department, police department, they're concerned as to where this whole thing's gonna go, what they're gonna need to do. Nothing's really changed since the last time we had a conversation. Things are running very smooth, and they're hoping to keep it smooth. The quality of professionalism that's out there with the paramedics and stuff, they've expanded, and that's really helpful to them because that brings a lot of extra money into the town when they do the transfer into the general fund. But they're a group of guys that in all about 2 seconds, any town around us would steal every one of them. So we got to make sure, and I think we're going the right way to make sure we protect that. Police department is working on, the new cars, the leases, things are, once again, status quo. Hoping that no big drastic cuts have to be done here come June, but, we'll see. As far as building department, I had a conversation last meeting and, things are going good there. Just, hopefully it will stay running smooth. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about.
I had a little conversation with him today. He's quite a colorful character, that one.
I'll tell you how it is.
Yes, he does. 5.3, announcements and communications.
So the only thing I have is, by unanimous vote, the HEROES Act was approved with amendments that were made by people right here in Townsend. Maybe the DAB and the DFW were actively involved in making some amendments to that. They got them in at the final minutes, and that was approved by unanimous vote. And we're looking for it to go forward to the Senate and asking all veterans to reach out to your senators and see if they approve it. And what this changes is some of the things regarding getting handicap plates and things like that, just to make it a little easier.
Well, Teresa, I know you were very instrumental in that. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. I have the Joint Committee on Community Development and Small Business. This is something that another group that goes along with what I was telling you about earlier with Margaret, Representative Scarsdale. She's having she calls it a question answer. It's on June 24th. She's inviting all of the small businesses that are in the area to, she wants to know what they're finding difficult, things that they have suggestions on changing, on what we need to do to encourage their growth and to try to get more small businesses in not only in Townsend but in other towns as well. So I'm looking forward to that particular conversation. And that's all I have. Joe, you got anything? 5.4, next meeting is going to be Tuesday, June 18th. And 5.5, I'll entertain a motion to review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, and he does. And this is in regards to the fire union negotiations, and we will adjourn from executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.